So as you all know, today is the birthday of the late great Michael Jackson. It's crazy how I spent all day just on YouTube, looking at different things that was suggested to me, and it's so crazy that there was not one post about Michael Jackson. There was not one post about. Have y'all noticed that? Even on Instagram, like, there hasn't been one post about Michael Jackson, and that is just so weird. That's so weird. And then it hit me. It was like, shout out to Satchel, because me and Satchel, we had this conversation earlier. Let me see, can I? That's weird. It's weird that it's not showing the comments on the live stream. That's weird. That's gonna bother me. Give me a second. That's gonna bother me if I can't see y'all's comments. Okay, now we got it. All right, now we good. I see it. Okay. All right. So, have y'all noticed that not only that, I was looking at Tariq Nasheed live stream that he did a few days ago, and there's this magazine, this music magazine, and let me see. I just about to say, bro, I can't see the comments on your screen. Yeah, it should be on there now though. There it goes. Okay, cool. So, Tariq Nasheed, he did this live stream not too long ago, and he talked about this magazine, this well-known magazine, and it had Harry Styles on the magazine talking about he's the king of pop. I'm like, are y'all freaking kidding me? Like, really? Like, this dude can't lift the armpit hair to Michael Jackson in any type of way, and then I've just been watching a bunch of videos. I checked out Dolo's video, checked out a few other videos of people that I listen to or that I watch and stuff like that. I guess everybody's talking about like passport people, either like people talking about passports, or the I guess the new woke people or something like that. Well, I got a different message that I want to talk about, and the message that I want to talk about, it this weighed very heavy on my heart, because y'all know, when it comes to channeling, that Michael Jackson essence, I have a track record showing that I've been able to do this very well. The reason why my channel has been shadow banned the way it has been is because of the work that I put in with the Archangel Michael Chronicles. And this right here is probably going to be like a Archangel Michael Chronicles 5.1, because there's not going to be any pictures or any videos or anything, but a lot of this that I'm going to talk about tonight is what I would talk about in a more in-depth manner if I ever decided to do the Archangel Michael Chronicles Part 6, which would be the finale. And the main reason why I haven't done that is simply because every time that I get into channel mode, and I really get into that mode where where I'm getting this information and stuff like that, I gotta make sure that I'm in a stable place, because when Michael's energy comes through, it comes through in a very powerful type of way, and it's like my inner child energy, like all of that has to be on point, and like I'm like a workhorse. I remember all the work and all the time and all the effort, like all the things that went into part 5. Like, I think I stayed up for like almost 2 days straight with no sleep, because every single thing that I was getting as far as the messages and stuff like that, I wanted to make sure that it was perfect. I wanted to make sure that it was the perfect pictures, the perfect videos, the perfect, I just wanted to make sure that that everything was exactly the way I heard it in my mind. So the way I feel about it, if I can't get into that stable place, living situation again, I'm gonna hold it off, because I want to give it my all. I want to give it my best, and but one thing, a lot of things hit me today. Shout out to Satral, because we had a conversation about this earlier today, and I was just telling him it was something that I said, and it kind of hit me. I said, is it just me, or does it really seem like the more this world goes on, the more corny Michael Jackson's music is starting to sound? And I want y'all to be honest. I want y'all to be honest out there about this, because I'm not saying this to disparage. As y'all know, like, I am a super fan of Michael Jackson. I'm a super fan. I've always have been, but this is something that that I've kind of started to see, because even when it comes to R&B, I never would have thought that I would hear so many men talk about how the R&B of the 90s and the R&B of the 80s is simp music. I'm like, huh? Simp music? Because at least, and you all may have a different opinion in the chat, but in those times, in the 80s and in the 90s, even though I wasn't born yet, there were a plethora of, in your everyday life, you could see women, as a man, you could see women, and as a woman, you could see men in your everyday life that you could picture yourself in a dream, in a fantasy type of way, singing those R&B songs to them. And what my opinion is about it, the more you stop being able to see those type of things in your everyday life, the more corny that stuff is gonna start to sound. Because you listen to this music and you're looking out in your everyday life, and it's like, damn, like what girl can I open up my heart to and sing this to? Let me know in the chat what y'all think about that, because I really feel like this even plays a part in Michael Jackson's music, and in a way, certain songs that really put Michael Jackson on the top of the map when he was alive. If you intake Heal the World, Heal the World starts to sound corny. Yes, yo, okay, so I'm not alone. All right, cool. So I'm not alone. Okay, so we're getting somewhere, because I'm over here saying this stuff, but I be thinking I'm alone when I'm saying this. But it's like, and it's not, and the message that I got was, it's not just Michael Jackson. It's anyone who represents the Piscean era. Anyone who represents the Pisces era, and trying to bring that world into this world, that was once a Pangea. All of that type of music. Think about all the artists who are Pisces, or all the influential people who were Pisces. Like Kanye, Pisces moon. Look, and a lot of his older music, when he was more into his innocence, is starting to sound corny now. A lot of that stuff from Graduation, a lot of that stuff from pre his mom dying, a lot of that music, it was good music, it was really, really good music, but a lot of it is starting to sound corny. I know this may ruffle a few feathers, but look at Kevin Samuels, Pisces. Corny. All that High Value Man, Hit Squad, Fit, Feminine, Friendly, like that shit is corny. Even though there was truth in it, even though in a lot of his message there was a lot of truth in it, because he's speaking this message in this world, with the way this world is set up, it's looked at as corny. I had to stop and skip that song earlier. Yeah. And I'm gonna tell y'all why. Because this is a spell. And the thing about it is, everything that's going on in Hollywood, everything that's going on with these movies and all of this stuff, is being changed around for a reason. A couple days ago, I got the urge, because when I'm brainstorming and I'm trying to figure out different ways that I want to do my animation, and I get a lot of inspiration from watching old cartoons. And so I decided to go back and look at Adventure Time, because Adventure Time was one of my favorite cartoons that I used to watch when I was in high school. And I didn't know that they got it now to where on Adventure Time, Marceline and Princess Bubblegum is in a homosexual lesbian relationship. I'm like, what? When did this happen? I'm like, yo, when did this happen? So I'm like, damn, like this agenda is even in a lot of, even in my favorite cartoon. Even with a lot of these Marvel heroes and stuff, you got the She-Hulk, you got all and it's not the She-Hulk that's in the comics. It's a She-Hulk, but it has an agenda behind it, and it doesn't make sense, and it's putting down the male Hulk. It's just weird. Like it's just so weird. But I started to see something else when I got back into my inner child energy. And I started to kind of go into a meditation, and I started reminiscing on a lot of the things that I grew up with that I love so much. Those things being Michael Jackson's music, those things being old school R&B and all of that type of stuff. It was like I started to fall in love with that music all over again. So now I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wait. So why is it that every time that I'm in my inner child, I'm in my innocence, I'm in that type of energy, everything that seems corny is no longer corny anymore. It doesn't seem corny anymore. when I'm in my inner child energy, and I listen and I listen to what Kevin Samuels had to say, he sounded like one of them old auntie church ladies, with the big hat, you know, that used to be in the church that I went to. There was I had an auntie that I used to you know, she wasn't in my family, you know, but we you know black families, you always have that Aunt Sadie, you always have that Aunt Bertha, you know, and they're not really your auntie, but you grew up with them so long and they were, you know, friends of the family that, you know, you would call them your auntie. And that old auntie, and she was like the bedrock of the church, other than the mother of the church. And she had that I don't play type of attitude, you know, I'm gonna tell it like it is, and all that type of stuff. The more I listened to a lot of the stuff that Kevin Samuels was talking about, he sounded a lot like her, you know, because that's how she would, you know, when she would see a lot of these girls walking around with you know, they call them hoochie mama clothes and all of that stuff, you know, she would talk in the same type of sentiment, you know. But look at how the world is today. Look at how the world is today, and look at how things are today, you know, and that you know, that lady that I'm talking about, she been passed away. So what am I saying? Even in order for me to do this, I had to really like get off of YouTube. I had to get off of social media, because one thing I was starting to see was the more, you know, I'm in my inner child energy, I'm you know, doing this shadow work, I'm doing this work, but the less I started seeing of innocence out into the world, the more heavy my heart got, and I started to get sad, you know. And then we're in Virgo season. There's a supposed retrograde that's going on with Mercury and all of this stuff. And I really started to see the real game, the real spell that's being played. Now, how many of y'all in the chat have heard about the one world government, the one world? You know, how many of y'all heard about that? You know, the one world government. How many of y'all heard about that? Have y'all heard about that? While y'all saying in the chat, I'm gonna go back in here and get my phone. Get my other phone. Hold on. Let me hook up to this Wi-Fi. Been hearing this since I was a kid. Okay. Cool. So this is the message that I got. And it's in the title. It's and Michael Jackson, he was right. He was right when he said this. But I'm gonna say it in a way that it needs to be handled out in this world today. And what that is we are our world. We are our world. Not this world, but we are our world. What I mean is, and I said this before, you know, you have people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and stuff like that, you know, talking about things like we're all the same and all of this stuff, you know, and we're not. The more time that I spend outside of this body, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through astral traveling, all of those type of things that a lot of people, it's hard for them to do if you spend a lot of time in the things of this world. I start to notice more and more and more how I'm different, and we're all different. The reason why we're all different is because and this is something that Melanie said in her live stream, where she was talking about water, about how water has memory. Water holds memory, and water recycles itself. So the water that you're drinking, this is the same water that your ancient ancestors were drinking, and all of that type of stuff. So if that's the case about water, then how is that not the case when it comes to us on a solar level? Now, I've been doing my own research about this, and I'm gonna tell y'all, I already told y'all about my stance on this, my situation with this, but I truly feel like that us as souls, the reason why we have so many different lifetimes and stuff like that is because we've been recycled from different worlds as well. And I truly feel like that your moon sign is a really, really good marker to the world where, at least the world where you last came from. I'm gonna say it like that. And each world came from a certain age. So when I talk about Sagittarius, and when I talk about Scorpio, which is the 8th and the 9th house, that's the dragon age. When I talk about Pisces and Aquarius, that's the Atlantis age, the Piscean age. Now I don't got this all the way figured out. I'm not gonna sit up here and act like I'm just the dundada of this as of yet, because I'm still learning. I'm still trying to put the pieces together of these different worlds where we come from. And one thing that I'm learning is the world where you came from. There were certain things that you had to know how to do very, very well in that world where you came from. And if you don't learn, and not only that, there were certain emotional states, there were certain psychological states, certain mental states that you had to be in order for you to survive and thrive in the world where you come from. And if you don't know this about yourself in this world right here, this artificial world that's trying to be a one world divergent, insurgent place, they will tell you that you got a psychological illness. They're going to tell you that this is a mental illness, all of that. Now, what am I saying? The best way that I can explain this is just by telling y'all where I come from, and I got this from my own past life regression that I got from Akasha, and I told y'all about that, about Mercury, where I'm from. And in Mercury, there's three things that the beings there had to know how to do. Either you knew how to do one or the other, and it was you was either a warrior, like you knew how to fight, like close range combat. 2, you were a mage, like you was a magician. You was really good at being a magician. And then 3, you was a hard worker. So the way the hierarchy was set, the people who just wanted to work hard, they were at the bottom. They were at the bottom of the hierarchy. And then you had the warriors, they were in the middle. And then above the warriors, you had the mages. Now where I'm from, you could only do one or the other. You know, you were, if you was the type where you could do all three, like me, I was always able to do all three. And what I remember was there were only a small group of us, and we were underground, you know. And when it came to, you know, to the rest of the world, you know, we didn't show all of the things that we could do at one time, because, you know, that was dangerous. You know, it was dangerous. It's dangerous to show that you could do all three of those things at once where I'm from, you know. And another thing about where I come from, Mercury was ruled by a queen, and she was called the Queen of Virgo, you know. And then you had you know, the Geminis, the people who were the Geminis, you know, they were in charge of transportation. You know, they would transport different you know, beings, you know, to different planets and stuff. They were the transporters, you know. And a lot of the hard workers, you know, they were the mechanics. You know, they work with machines and stuff like that. So been hearing this since I was a kid. Yeah. Oh, okay. Just trying to make sure ain't nothing going on in the chat. But yeah, so us that was underground and we knew how to do all three of these things, we didn't want to get married to the Queen of Virgo, because if we did, then we would get exposed. Now, a lot of the other stuff that happened, you know, pertaining to that, I can't really remember. I had this dream a few years ago, and I've been just trying my best to keep remembering as much as I can about it. But one thing that I'm noticing when I'm looking up these celebrities and when I'm doing my readings and stuff like that, your moon sign, a lot about your moon sign says a lot about where you're from, and then your sun sign, that tells you a lot about, you know, the body that you decided to house yourself in. And then you got your ascendant, you know, how you want everybody else to perceive you, you know. So when you think about Michael Jackson, you know, Pisces moon, and that's, now we're talking about the Piscean age. You know, this is a age to where you know, this is an age to where the world was pretty much all water. You know, and you had Atlantis and all of that, and then you had the water barrier, which was the Aquarius, which was the water barrier, and then the depths of the unknown, or the cemetery that's underwater where all the treasures are, where Olokun is and all of that. You know, that's below the barrier of Aquarius. If I could draw this out, I would. So when it comes to Virgo, and when you think about you know, the three things that I said, the illness that a lot of people relegate to us is anxiety. How many of y'all heard that? You know, Virgos, how many of y'all heard about anxiety? You know, we our nervous system is running a mile a minute, you know, which makes us nervous, which makes us shy, which makes us worry a lot, all of those type of things. Now, if you didn't know where you're from, you know, spiritually, you know, on a solar level, if you didn't understand where you was from, and you listened to this world that wants to tell you that you have anxiety. Now, in the world where we're from, anxiety, it just means a heightened sense of awareness where I'm from, you know, because you always got to be ready for whatever, you know. Even when it comes to fighting or with swords or words. You know, where I'm from in Memphis, you know, we had this thing called checking, you know, or ranking, or chopping. You know, everywhere got a different name for it. And when it comes to this, you know, this is almost like how we fought on Mercury. But you know, on Mercury we did it with knives. We fought with knives, and we were close combat with it. You know, so when you're fighting in close combat, you know, you gotta make sure that you're on point when it comes to you know, your awareness, being able to predict the other person's moves, which means that you got to have a heightened sense of awareness with that. You got to always be kind of like jumping from side to side and all of that type of stuff. Translation: when somebody checks you and they say, you know, get your looking at nigga, you know, whatever, you know, you gotta already be thinking a mile a minute. You gotta be thinking a mile a minute, and you gotta have something in the chamber to throw back at them, you know, because if it take you too long to think of something and they firing at you, you know, the longer it takes for you to fire back, the more you lose ground, you know, and then the other person can overtake you, you know. Very important. Now on a mage level, you know, this is talking about cursing, but the way we curse as Virgos is different. You know, it cuts deep, and the reason why we gotta do it like that is simply because, you know, a stab, when somebody is stabbing you with a dagger, you know, you're gonna feel that pain a lot more deeply than you being shot from far range, you know. So whatever blow that you gotta do, you gotta make sure that blow is gonna count, you know. So all of this ties in, and we can just go, you know, we can just go throughout the different you know, signs and point out the different illnesses, the different quote unquote psychological illnesses that these people of this world tries to put on people, you know. And then if you turn that around and then you put that to how you had to be in the world where you came from, and now you see, like, no, this isn't an illness, this is my superpower, you know. Because if I'm not always anxious, if my mind isn't moving and moving and stuff like that, I would be dead meat where I'm from, you know. But this is how it is when you're being put into a world, and this world wants you to forget everything about where you came from, even though you have these ingrained feelings, these ingrained mental capacities, and these ingrained emotions and stuff like that, you know. And since you're not using these things correctly, you're not put in the right environment where you can use these things correctly to where it makes sense. Now it's being looked at as a illness. You're worrying. It look like somebody that's worrying too much, you know, because you're not put in a place, you know, you're not giving the right training, you're not put in the right kind of place to where that anxiety can be a superpower, you know. So I need to chill with the cursing. yeah, because we don't understand. See, and I've said this before, it is very, very, when you take the soul away, it is very, very easy to mimic the human body. It's very easy. So you got, you know, you might see somebody and they may look like a regular woman, or they may look like a regular guy, but if you could see them outside of their body, you know, you would probably think that they're a monster, you know, because where they're from, spiritually, where they're from, the body that they would have needed for where they're from, it looks a whole lot different from this body. I hope y'all can understand that. I hope y'all can get that. So this is the fight. This is the fight that we're under. The fight is keeping you so far removed from where you're from. It's like somebody kidnapped you at 18 and took you to this fake world that's really like a concentration camp. And the more you indulge in that world, the more you have to put the things of your world to the side, to the point where you start to forget. And that's what they want you to do, because the more ignorant you are, the more this world can use you to power their shit. And that's not right. That's not cool. That's not right. But the thing about it is, it's up to us. It's up to us to keep our world alive. It's up to you to keep your world alive. I don't care what you got to do. Don't let this multiverse stuff. Don't let this multiverse stuff fool you, because we've always lived in a multiverse. I'm not from the same world that a lot of other people are from. So it's always been like that. We're all a different universe within itself, and we all got a little piece. We all have little pieces of the world that we were once from. And then beyond that, it's source. And it's up to us in our everyday lives. It's up to us to keep our world alive, because that's the only way that we're going to be in harmony, in this illusion that we're under. So since I talked about that, let me go ahead and go back in here, because I want to explain to y'all why I got these two natal charts up here, because I don't really got that much time. And let me know if y'all want me to do live readings. Let me know. Okay, so let me get this together. Because I want to show y'all firsthand I want to show y'all firsthand what happened. Like, why is it that everything that Michael Jackson stood for is looked at as corny now? So give me 1 second. Let me go back here. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to look at, we're going to go back to Michael Jackson's natal chart. So as you all can see, and y'all can do this with y'all birthday too. Okay. So let me push this up. Dang, I pushed it down. See, this sucks when you don't have a mouse. Okay. I really want to know myself. Okay, so we got six viewers, 6 likes. Okay, so Michael Jackson, he was born on August the 29th, 1958, and his sun was in Virgo in the 6th house. And the way his natal chart looks, he had a straight shot. He had a straight shot to his inner child, which is the moon in Pisces in the 1st house. You know, now there's a opposition when it comes to that, and the way we can understand, you know, the meaning of this opposition, we got to go to the vertex, the vertex in Virgo in the 7th house. You know, and I think I talked about this in part 1 of the Archangel Michael Chronicles, and I talked about how this vertex, you know, this is the counter ascendant, and this talks about someone who is very influenced by flattery, therefore easy to swindle. You know, unless one strongly resists one's instincts, relationships with people of the opposite gender are the cause of disgrace and dishonor. You know, there was a reason why, you know, the industry wanted to keep this illusion that Michael Jackson didn't have no women. You know, even though I already debunked that, you know, and I showed y'all the different women that Michael Jackson had, you know, and then what the soulless beings did, you know, they took that and they flipped that and made it seem like, okay, you know, he's homosexual, he's a child, you know, he does stuff with children, like all this, you know, they put a lot of perverted stuff behind it, you know. So what this means is, see, with Michael Jackson having a sun in Virgo in the 6th house, he always worked in his innocence. You know, he always worked in his innocence. How many of y'all out here today can truly say that your job, that your work has something to do with your innocence? You know, this is the trick, because you working in your innocence, meaning that you're working, you know, your work is a part of your world. Your work is a part of your world that you're you know, that you're putting out for everybody else to enjoy, you know. So when we look at the natal chart for today, you got, let me see, let me do this. I'm gonna take this and not this one. Give me a second. I'm trying to refresh this page. Okay, so now is more accurate. Okay, so right now when we instead of us working in our innocence, you know, right now we're working in our creativity. You know, we're at least this is what we're trying to do, you know, because Virgo is in the 5th house, and you know, we're working on protecting our creativity, you know, protecting our inner child, you know, protecting that part of us that just wants to be creative, you know. But in doing that, because as you can see with this red line, hold on, let me pull this up so y'all can see this. So okay, so with that red line, you know, this is saying that you trying to protect this is going to be at the defense of your self-esteem, you know, which means that a lot of people, you know, especially in this world today, because you got to understand, you know, Michael Jackson, he was born with both parents. You know, as much as you want to say negative about his dad was the reason why he worked so hard, and his mom was the reason why he was able to have, you know, still be able to have that innocence, you know. And a little bit about the world where Michael Jackson comes from. He comes from a world to where, you know, he's able to handle a lot more emotional pain. He's able to handle a lot more emotional pain than the average person. You know, that's one thing I can really say about Pisces. You can look at Kanye. You know, a lot of the things that Kanye been through in his life. You know, for the life of me, I don't understand how he can still make music, let alone, you know, music that can still touch you, you know, still touch your soul and stuff like that, you know. But that's the reason why. But when it comes to the world today, you know, our self-esteem, you know, because of social media, because of the different communications that hold on because of the different communications and stuff like that, you know, the social media, the different medias and things like that, that's always you know, hitting at your self-esteem. It's hard for us today to work in our creativity, to work in our innocence, you know, like unlike how Michael Jackson did, because you know, number one, a lot of us, we don't have that type of protection of both parents, you know, and a lot of us, we don't have that that foundation to where we can have a strong enough self-esteem to get us through this social media age, you know, an age that Michael Jackson didn't have to go through when he was coming up, you know. So that's the first thing. So now let's go back so we can see Michael Jackson moon sign. And he's a Pisces moon in the first house. I stay away from social media nowadays for this reason, and others can't seem to grasp the concept. Yeah, like it's very toxic. It's very toxic, and as you can see, the more Michael Jackson had to deal with the media, you know, the worse he started to get. Now, this didn't affect him as an artist, you know, it didn't affect him as a musician, but as a person, this affected Michael a lot. And it's almost to the point where, you know, because we understand how everything went under, you know, after Michael Jackson passed in 2009. But you got to think about it though, with all the things that he been through, and you know, with the way the world is today, it's almost selfish to say that you wish that he was still here, you know, because, you know, I truly feel like if Michael Jackson would still be alive, you know, they would have found some kind of way. They would have did something. They would have tried to find some kind of way to get Michael Jackson locked up. They would have tried something, you know. So now his moon was in Pisces in the first house, and he has a very, very strong connection. Look at these green lines. Hold on, let me do this so y'all can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so with those two green lines that you see right there, you know, that means that connection that he had with the world that he came from. You know, everything that he sung about was about that world that he came from. You know, you're just another part of me. You know, we are the world. You are not alone. All of the very inspirational songs, you know, the Earth song, Heal the World, like all of that had something to do with him expressing the world that he came from, you know. And every time that we have this relationship with our inner child, and we can and we can you know, do what we came here to do, to show a part of our world, the more we'll be in alignment energetically and spiritually, you know. But then when you see the red lines, you know, these are all the things that he had to go up against. You know, he had to go up against the ninth house, you know, which means that you know, he had to go up against people who had ulterior beliefs, you know, people who had ulterior beliefs, and he was going against you know, different religious groups and, you know, things like that, because of the message that he was trying to portray. You know, he was exposing a lot of things, a lot of people's beliefs. He was exposing a lot, you know, which mean and when you look at and we're gonna see where Pisces is today, you know, so I can draw the correlation, you know. And then, have you noticed they have changed the frequencies? Yeah, I'm telling you, and it's all for a reason. It's all for a reason, you know, because his music was the blueprint. His music was the blueprint of how to get to know your inner child. Even now, you know, if you feeling sad, if you feeling down or something like that, you can listen to a Michael Jackson song and just feel good, you know, just feel happy, you know, just feel good about yourself, you know. The red line going from his moon sign to his sun sign, that's very important, because at the end of the day, every time that Michael Jackson was in that mode where he was expressing how things were in the Piscean era, you know, he was like a god. They don't want that no more. They don't want you to they don't want you to find this out, you know. And they put certain things out in the world to where it makes you feel like it's impossible for you to achieve your dreams, you know. Every time Michael Jackson, you know, every time he went to sleep and had a dream, or he would go into meditation, you know, this is how he would get his music and stuff like that. So the way the industry, you know, slowly started to drain Michael, you know, they you know, the media and all of this stuff put all of these negative images, all of these negative thoughts, all of these negative things, touring and all of this stuff, to where it was hard for Michael to sleep. You know, it was hard for him to sleep, to the point where, you know, he had to take heavy drugs and all of that stuff just to go to sleep. And yeah, you're right about that 808 bass. You know, all of this stuff is to hit you on a spiritual level. Think about it. Like, think about the funk records. You know, think about the funk records when your mom and your dad was young. You know, there was no such thing as that type of bass. Like, most of the bass that you heard back then was played by a real bass, by a real guitar. You know, and even if the guitar was electric, it was still like it was, you know, with the different filters and the different EQs and all of that type of stuff, you know, they would EQ that bass in a certain type of way where you could feel it in your soul. You know, that's why they called it soul music. You know, and think about the foundation. Think about Michael Jackson's foundation. You know, the fourth house in Gemini. Think about Michael Jackson's foundation. You know, all of that music from the Jackson 5. You know, all of that music from you know, the Jacksons and all of that stuff. You know, all of that was played by real, even Thriller. Like, all of that stuff was played by like real authentic instrumentation. You know, and even when you think about that, you know, the music, the sounds, you know, even when you think about that, you no longer see that in the world anymore. You know, because all of these different tones and all of this stuff, it touches you in a certain way, and it gives you a memory. You know, and you can use that memory to go back to the world where you came from. You know, and remember why you decided to come here. You know, I know that's how I feel every time I listen to funk music. When I listen to old funk music, when I listen to old you know, a lot of them old disco records and stuff like that. You know, the Brothers Johnson, you know, a lot of those old records, you know, that's how I was able to create a lot of my designs for my clothing line. I just listened to a bunch of disco records, a lot of funk records, and it just gave me all this energy, all this aya. You know, very important. So let's see where the moon is at. Let's see where the moon is at today. What's up, Nacho Lover? So as you can see right now, the moon is in Libra in the 6th house. You know, so the spell, yep, even with Prince, you know, with the guitar, you know, that was his main instrument. The guitar is a very, very powerful instrument. It's a very powerful instrument that uses strings, you know, strings and wood and metal. I think there was this old episode on Mr. Rogers where Mr. Rogers went to a guitar factory and they taught you how guitars were made, and I was just so fascinated. I was so fascinated that I begged my mom to buy me a guitar. You know, so right now the moon is in Libra in the 6th house. You know, so we're working, we're trying to work on balancing. We're working on balancing. And then what's in the 7th house? Scorpio. So it's almost like we're working on balancing ourselves, but there's manipulation in the balance. There's manipulation in the balance. You know, see, this is one of the things that Michael, he didn't have to go through in his, you know, when he started. You know, see, Michael Jackson, his 7th house was also in Virgo. You know, his 7th house was in Virgo. So all he had to do, you know, he was put into a situation to where, you know, as long as he was in tune with his inner child, you know, he was straight. He was straight. But with us in this world in 2022, it's like we're working on balance, but the balance is a manipulation. You know, and you know, this is where the passport stuff comes in. You know, we're trying to work on having a relationship and stuff like that. But then when we look out into the world, all we see is manipulation. You know, 7th house in Scorpio. Right now, the 7th house is in Scorpio. You know, which means that, you know, we're trying to find Obanani, you know, but instead we're finding we're seeing manipulative Oya energy, chaos. You know, all we see is chaos in the world today when it comes to relationships and when it comes to marriage and all of that kind of stuff, you know. And the music and the entertainment and all of that stuff is trying to be a reflection of that, you know. But as we understand, when it comes to the Orishas, Oya, if you can go to the eye of the hurricane and you can really go deep enough, you can see that, you know, Oya she has a good heart. Like she's a good person. She's a good Orisha, you know. It's just that when she's agitated, she causes a hurricane. You know, when she tries to control, when a woman is trying to control too much and she don't want to relinquish any type of control, she turns into a hurricane. She turns into Oya. She turns into Kali. You know, and us, you know, we're this we're the baby issue, and we're looking for Obanani. We're looking for a baby Oshun that turned into Obanani. We're looking for a wife. We're looking for Obanani. You know, we're not looking for a Oya that's gonna try to put some voodoo on us because she think we cheating. You know. And then on top of that, on top of that, you know, the more we focus on what the world is trying to show us, the more we focus on what this world is trying to show us with this, and we see this vertex in Libra, you know. This is what turns you into a intelligent, conceited, and wily character. Instead of focusing on hard work and enhancing one's skills, one spends too much time plotting and gossiping. You know, that's all you see in the manosphere right now. You know, that's all you see in the dating world, in the relationship world. You know, that's all you see on social media in terms of dating and relationships. You know, nothing talking about innocence. You know, nothing talking about, you know, baby as you know, it's all plotting and gossiping. You know, what man wants to go through that? What woman wants to go through that? You know, because this is on both sides. You know, there's toxicity in on both sides, but it won't take long before people understand one's dishonest nature and spread it to the world. And that's what's going on. You got these people that don't, you know, you got these people that don't know who they are, getting in relationships with other people who don't know who they are, and when they get their heart broken, now they have a voice. They have a voice where they can go on social media and you know, and tell everybody, you know, they got access. They have a access that, you know, people back in the day, they didn't have that access to go on social media where they got access to hundreds and thousands and millions of people and disgrace their partners, you know, disgrace their people, you know, to the world. It is necessary to adopt a more respectable behavior in order to earn back the esteem of friends, colleagues, and to avoid serious setbacks. You know, but in order for you to do that, Mercury is in retrograde. You know, which means that, you know, a lot of our people are so far gone when it comes to this particular fact. You know, your message, no matter how innocent you try to be in this time, your message will never come off the way you want it to come off, because Mercury is in retrograde. And this is the reason why. Because if you got an innocent heart, if you got a pure heart, if you got an innocent heart, you understand everything that's wrong with the world today. You know, but if you're gonna try to do what Michael Jackson did and try to say heal the world and make it a better place and all of that stuff, you're gonna be looked at as corny. If you want to take the Prince approach, you know, and then, you know, you're gonna be looked at as the problem. You know, so it's like right now it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. But at the end of the day, all we want is balance. You know, all we want is our mayat. You know, so the best thing that you can do right now is to the best thing that you can do right now is to keep your world alive. You know, and that's what the metaverse is about. However you got to do it. You know, and this is where you can be creative. See me, you know, I'm doing it through my animation, you know, Eshu's world. But you know, depending on what world you come from, you know, you might want to write a book, you know, you might want to journal, you know, you might want to, you know, plant, you know, have a garden, you know, you might want to write a song, you know, something that represents the world where you come from, you know. So that's very important. And then we got, let's see. So Michael Jackson, his ascendant was also in Pisces. You know? So he looked, so every time the world took a jab at his inner child, it showed in his outer appearance. You know, it showed at on his outer appearance. Now let's see what the ascendant is right now. The ascendant is Taurus. You know, this is the reason why Lizzo is being put out. You know, she's the Taurus sacrifice. You know, we're hearing a lot of talk about Lizzo right now. We're hearing a lot of talk about Michael Jordan, the Bull. You know, and you know, this is talking about you know, being stable. You know, being looked at as the staple, being looked at as the staple of a unstable second house. You know, because right now the second house is in Gemini, so there's a lot of talks about confidence, you know, a lot of talks about self-esteem and all of that kind of stuff, you know. But in people's mind states right now, you said you should pick up the sax again one day. Yo, I really want to. Bro, y'all don't understand how expensive saxophones are. Like, saxophones aren't cheap, man. They're expensive. You know, I hate the fact that I had to sell my saxophone. You know, that really hurt me. You know, let me. Oh damn. But yeah, you know, so what's going on right now in the world, you know, when you look at this Lilith in the third house, you know, independent, imaginative, and rebellious character, you know, psychological qualities. One has the ability to implement projects by oneself. One is driven by the certainty that the criticisms underwent at the outset will turn into praises. You know, so this is the mindset. This is the mindset that you see in the world right now. Independent, imaginative, and rebellious. One has the ability to implement projects by yourself. You know, I can do it all on my own. One is driven by the certainty that the criticisms underwent at the outset will turn into praises once the success is achieved. You know? And again, if you try to communicate that this isn't, you know, how it's gonna be, and you trying to communicate that this ain't the way to go right now, Mercury's in retrograde, and your message will never hit like it's supposed to. you know. And then last but not least, Michael Jackson's midheaven was in Sagittarius, and then he got a Saturn in Sagittarius in the 10th house as well. So his status represented how powerful you can be when you become one with your inner child. But it also shows you the hard reality and the consequences of being a superstar. I'm gonna say it again. Michael Jackson, with his midheaven in Sagittarius and his Saturn in Sagittarius in the 10th house, he showed us with his status, he showed us how powerful you can be, how influential and how powerful you can be when you become one with your inner child and you become a god. But then with Saturn here, he shows you how the inevitable consequences and the hard reality of what happens when you become a superstar. You know? Now let's see where the midheaven is today. So today the midheaven is in Capricorn, and we got Pluto here. So this is a deep process. You know, the midheaven is in Capricorn, and Pluto is in Capricorn in the 10th house. So this is a deep process. You know, this is a deep process that we're gonna have to go through if we want to find a working balance. Because you know what today is, we got to learn how to find a working balance with our innocence, and learn how to be creative with that, no matter how unstable that you come off in the world. Because at the end of the day, you know, it's not going to be an easy process, because this world that we live in puts so many stumbling blocks in our way to keep us from wanting to do that. You know, while I'm trying to come up with the funding for my animation and all that kind of stuff, you know, the biggest thing the biggest fight that I'm having right now is staying excited about this, you know, staying excited about it. Because once I lose the excitement, you know, I'm not gonna want to do it anymore. And you know, one of the worst things about being a Gemini sometimes is that we can start a lot of things, and you know, because we may not have the resources, or we might not feel the same way about it, we can start a lot of good things, but we won't finish it, you know. So that's the biggest thing that we have to do. We have to understand that we are our world, you know, and everybody here is from a different world. Aries are like that too, yeah. You know, everybody is from everybody has a different version, a different world where they come from, you know. And this world right here, it was meant to be a melting pot, you know, where when I talk to you, I'm learning about the world that you come from. You know, when I do my readings and I talk to people, you know, now I'm getting research about the world that you come from, you know, and how beautiful and how dope your world that you come from is. And then I can understand, you know, when you were a baby, why did you decide to come here? You know, what gifts and talents that made you a celebrity in your world? You know, you told the representatives of your world that, yo, I want to be the one, you know. Because remember, when you're happy, you know, when a man ejaculates into a woman and you know, and a baby is formed, you know, there are thousands and thousands of sperm, but only one is going to enter that egg and make that baby. And you were the one. You were the one that decided that I'm gonna be the representative from my world. You know, you were a celebrity in your world. You know, you were the president. You were the president in your world. You know, so you decided that you was going to come here and leave your mark on this world. You know, you decided that you wanted to come here and leave a piece of your world here. And think about the babies that never get a chance to do that because of the way this world, you know, is so devilish. Shout out to Dolo the Pilot, man, because he talked about the devil. He said the devil represents limits and restrictions. You know, we live in a world to where the sky is the limit. And a lot of us, we have, in order for us to survive, we have to put ourselves under a ceiling. You know, so we can never even touch the sky. You know, that ceiling can be your job. You know, that if you decide to leave that job, you'll be homeless. You know, that ceiling could be school, because if you don't stay in school, you're not going to get a degree, and then you won't be able to survive. You know, so these soulless beings of this world put you in a box so that you can't think outside the box. Because if you think outside the box, you know, and then you understand that the sky is an illusion. So it's really not a limit, but this world puts you in a box so that you can never see what's beyond it, what's beyond the sky. You know, have you heard of that lost contentment of MJ? What you mean, lost continent? Oh, the lost continent of Yo, I'm telling you, you know, and that's the reason why this world has to be so hard to keep you from pondering, to keep you from thinking, you know, to keep you from being able to spend that time in meditation and spend that time, you know, uncovering, you know, what and doing what you're really supposed to be doing what you set out to do. You know, the reason why you decided to come here. You know, so that's what this is about. You know, that's what this is about. It's about how hard are you willing to work so that you can how hard are you willing to balance your work, so that way you can finally show your creativity in the most innocent way that's going to make you come off as someone that's stable. You know, so that's it. If y'all want to throw some alignments out there, y'all can. Shout out to all the baby issues. Yeah, man, because we going through it, man. You know, our inner child energy is what keeps hope alive. You know, the baby issue is what keeps hope alive. You know, once the baby issue have to grow up. Okay. Yeah, once the baby issue loses hope, and he feels like that he gotta, you know, and he starts to be unbalanced, he ends up being the most notorious. He ends up being the most notorious of the things of the Sagittarian and the Scorpio. You know, because, you know, Virgo is the 6, you know, the baby 6, and then you got Libra. Libra is the mediator between the Dragon Age. Libra is the mediator between the Scorpio and the Sagittarius. You know, so if the 5 and the 6, which is the Oshun, the baby Oshun and baby Eshu, when these two energies lose hope and they lose faith, and then they become corrupt and they lose balance. With Libra, when they rise up and they get a taste of that Scorpio energy, you don't y'all know how the Joker is on Batman. Issue is that times a million once he gets a taste of that Scorpio energy and he's not balanced. And when we look out in the world today, we see what happens with Oshun when she doesn't know who she is and she's unbalanced and she turns into that Scorpio. She turns into Pambagera. And even worse than that. And then once they rise up to Sagittarius, it's like you can't even get mad at what they turned into, because of the imbalance. And in this world, they don't want you to rise up to the Sagittarius, because if you can rise up to Sagittarius, no matter if you had a good past or a bad past, this is where you become influential. And it seems like the people who had the hardest lives, they become the most influential. So that's it. Y'all want to put some alignments out there, send me some donations, and we'll talk about the work that you have to do, so that you can balance yourself out, so that you can balance this Scorpio energy out, so that way you can start to show your innocence in a more creative way. So y'all let me know if y'all want to do that. I'm finna, and while y'all doing that, I'm about to pack my stuff up because I gotta leave from this Starbucks. So I got two lecture series that I'm thinking about doing next. I got the Shadow PC lecture, and this is going to be the bonus. This is going to talk about the bonus stages. The bonus stages after, what happens when, after you started on this shadow work journey, And then I got the metaphysics of love and basketball. So y'all let me know. I don't know which one I want to do first. The metaphysics of love and basketball, where I talk about the metaphysics of basketball, how it represents relationships, how this system of soulless beings took our gods and made them basketball players and stuff like that. Talking about how a lot of our NBA greats, they represent gods, and what they would have been doing had they not been playing basketball. And then we got the Shadow PC, and I've been talking about the Shadow PC for a long time, and this is going to be a lecture that's going to have a lot to do with what happens after you get to a certain point in your shadow work. So this is going to be a straight to Patreon, and for those who's going to get my shadow work class, this is going to be a bonus. And in the shadow work class, we're going to go a lot deeper on the Shadow PC, because I'm broadcasting to you right now on my Shadow PC. My Shadow PC is the reason why I'm able to do my animated series. It's also the reason why I'm able to do my my clothing line and all of that type of stuff. So that's going to be a very, very action-packed video. So y'all let me know. Y'all wanna do some live readings? Y'all wanna do some live readings tonight? Let me know. I know it's late. We talking about what is the deep work? What is the deep work that we all need to do so that we can express our creativity in the most innocent way? You know, because online, when you're looking online, you know, people got this misconception. Have a good night. Have a good night. In the world, there's this misconception that you know, you getting a passport is gonna solve all your problems. Shout out to the Thinking Man's Templar. What happens after shadow work? You know, this is when you start working in your shadow PC. That's what happens after shadow work. You know, what happens after shadow work, because shadow work never really ends, but you get to a point, while you're doing your shadow work, you get to a point where you start to operate in your shadow PC instead of you operating in this limited mind. You start to just like what Dolo the Pilot Man, when he talks about God is all possibilities, you start to work in all possibilities. That's what the shadow PC is. You know, this shadow PC that I'm on, I'm talking to you right now. You know, think about how my live stream sound when I'm doing it on my MacBook with the limited internet. You know, the audio doesn't come out good. It's skipping, you know, all this type of stuff. But when I come to y'all and I'm broadcasting with my shadow PC, the audio is clear. I never had to worry about the internet going down. You know, I can stream my games, and I can do things that I could never do on my MacBook with this shadow PC. And this is also something that I'm gonna break down on a spiritual sense. You know, a lot of us, we have different things that we wish that we could do, and we wonder why our ancient ancestors was able to do these great things and all of this stuff. And you know, and the reason why we can't figure it out is because our ancient ancestors, they wasn't depending on this body and this mind to do the great things that they were doing. You know, they were using a quote unquote shadow PC in order to achieve these great things. But the shadow PC that they were using, it had a different name. You know, and this is something that came to me months ago. You know, this came to me months ago, but you know, I said that I wasn't gonna talk about it. I said that I wasn't gonna talk about it until I finished my second episode of Eshu's World, because I want to show y'all, you know, in my own way, the things that you can do with your shadow PC. You know, because there's no way, no how that I could have done this Eshu's World animation with my MacBook. No way. You know, Mac don't even have the right graphics card that supports Unreal Engine 5. You know, and to do what I'm doing, to do what I'm doing with this Eshu's World and with all this stuff, I would need a computer that costs thousands and thousands of dollars. But with this shadow PC, I can do all this on my phone, or I can do an overlay on my MacBook, and I can use the shadow PC on my MacBook and turn my MacBook into a PC. You know, so you over here thinking that our ancient ancestors was using, you know, these bodies using this mind, to do those great things. No, they was doing something very similar to what I'm doing right now, and I'm gonna go deeper into that. I want to go deeper into that in this. This is gonna be probably like a 4 part lecture. And then this is gonna be something that I'm gonna add to my shadow work class, because this is gonna be the bonus stages. After you've done, you went up the stages of enlightenment, and then you started getting to know your inner child. You created a link to your inner child. You created a world to where your inner child can roam free and things like that. And now with you having this connection to your inner child, now that shadow self that you've been cleaning out so much, that shadow self that you've been cleaning out so much, that you've been cleaning out and stuff, now you can command that shadow self and turn that shadow self into your own shadow PC. And I'm gonna just stop right there because I'm already talking too much. Already talking too much. So that's what that's gonna be about. So let me know if y'all want to put some alignments out there, because if not, I'm about to dip. I think my phone is. It's one thing I don't like about this Z Fold 3. The battery life sucks. This phone is already finna die. Let me see what y'all saying in the chat. Yeah, don't worry. I'm trying to figure out which one I want to do first. I don't know which one I want to do. Which one will be easier for me to do. But before I made this video, I wanted to use it myself, and just kind of, I wanted to use it myself and really get the full experience of it. And now that I've gotten that, now I feel like I can formulate this or whatever. So I guess if there be nothing else, I appreciate the people who are here. We're gonna keep the energy of Michael Jackson alive. We're gonna keep that energy alive. We're gonna keep that innocence alive, keep that hope alive. And however you all decide to keep your world alive, don't let nothing, don't let nothing keep you from adding some energy into your world. It's like with me, for me to find the pieces and things that I need in order for me to keep my world alive, I have to go into the astral realm. Since I don't got no money to learn from people how to do a lot of these Shiva things that I was talking about in my other live stream. I literally had a dream last night. I had a dream last night that I was holding my own hypnosis demonstration. So I didn't went to a different dimension through dreaming. I didn't went to a different dimension to where instead of me doing this, I went down the hypnosis route. And it was funny because my homegirl Aya Montero was in that dream. So I didn't did this demonstration, and it was crazy too. Like I was good at it too. I was a novice, but I was also good at it. Like I don't remember everything I did, but I remember I was inducting. I don't know if that's the word. Inducting these chicks, and their eyes went black and they started fluttering, and then they remember who they were. And then Aya came around because she was like, yo, we need to she was like, there's a war going on a different dimension, and we need help. So I was able to give her, she was able to recruit some warriors, some goddesses, some warriors, and I was very, very instrumental in doing that, because it was like once you remember who you are and you remember what you came down here to do, and then Aya took you and put you through the training so you can be ready for the fight, because just think about this, what if we're living in a real life Infinity War? What if we're living in a real life Marvel Infinity War, and we, and all of us who are here that are in the know, that are awake, we all got to fight. We all have a fight that we got to do, and the reason why we feel out of place in this world is because that's what we're really supposed to be doing, and all it takes is for a Shiva to come around and put you under an induction and reprogram your mainframe to where you remember why you really came here, why you really supposed to be here, and then Aya comes and be like, all right, you're ready now, let's put you through the training so you can be ready to fight, and now you're a warrior on the front line, so all right, y'all, so I'm about to get on up out of here. I appreciate everybody who's here, and